Okay, let's start talking about plotting. Um, so in order to plot, the form is that use the function plot, and then you're gonna put your x values, comma, your y values, right? This is the general layout. So let's try to plot, um, let's create two arrays to plot them against each other. So let's create an array, call it x, or let's call it t, and let t go from 0 to 0 with increments of 5 to a final value of 200. So this is representative of some temperature maybe you measured in a lab or something like that. So I'm going to suppress it so that it doesn't show me the entire list of numbers from 0 to 200. It's fine. And then so this will be my x values. And then for my y values, I'm going to create a second parameter. Let's call it r, and this is equivalent to t to the power 2, right? And I need to include this dot here so that I'm able to square every element because t is an array. So it's gonna create an array or which contains the values of the array t squared. So I have my x values and my y values, so now I'm gonna write the command to plot them. Plot t comma r, and once you run it, you should be able to see um, the figure. So I have the figure here on the bottom right. Usually it pops as a new window, but I have it here so it's easier to record this type of video. Okay, plot t comma r. So once after you create the plot, usually you want to add some cosmetics, and the first one is the title. So when writing your title, this is the format used. Just say title. Again, it starts with a small letter. If you write it with a capital letter, it might not work. So I'll call it temperature versus temperature squared, right? So this is the title of the plot. And then once I enter, you can see that the title showed up here. A second type of manipulation you typically do is X label. So if you write X label and then bracket, one quotation mark, and then I'm gonna add a label on the X axis here. So let me call it temperature. And you see here, I have my label as temperature. Y label, again, similarly, I'm going to put a label on my y-axis, so let's call it temperature squared, and you should be able to see it on the y label as well. Other typical manipulation is grid or grid on, either would work, and once I click on enter, it shows me the grid lines. So these are usually the typical manipulations you do in Matlab. Another thing you could do is click on hold. So hold will basically save this plot. So if you want to create another graph and put it on top of it, it's not gonna get rid of this figure. So let's hold this plot, and now let's create a third array. Let me call it M, for example, and this one will be equal to um, square root of t. Right, let's try getting the square root of the array t. And I'm gonna press enter. So basically I created a third array M, if you look in the top right here, and the values in M are equal to the values of t, but to the power half, basically the square root of it. And now I'm gonna plot t versus M on this same plot here. So I'm gonna plot t, capital T, for my x-axis, M on my y-axis, but now I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna include a third piece of information for this command, and here I'm gonna instead of plotting it as one straight smooth line, I'm going to plot it as individual points. So in this case, I'm going to use O, for example, and this will create this plot as O's are basically as circles. Alternatively, you could use a dash, you could use a star, whichever type. There are a bunch of shapes which you could use to show your points. And so if I click on enter, you can see here that this plot, it showed that the second plot as O's at the bottom here.